Okay, so we're moving now to the shoulders and the chest area, which I find oftentimes very tight for the riders. And if we're talking about balance and all the weird things we do to straight elbows, to close, pushing hands down, it always comes down to the chest area. Also about the balance, because you have a diaphragm here, so diaphragm controls the breathing. If you breathe good, you're more likely to have a better balance. So you can't train simply balance exercises as standing on one leg. You also have to take care of the chest part. So the chest part, as of testing, first I like to see the shoulders pulled up, just up to the ears and slowly down. What most people will want to do, they will want to pull them back, which is something we've been taught in riding a lot, so pull them back. But I just want to see how they move up. And can you slowly control the movement down? And when they can do that nicely, I would probably challenge them with doing it one side. So just to really feel the difference from one side and then to the other side. You might notice that in one direction you can go up nicer, faster, and go down, it's a little bit tricky. And again, the other one might feel a tighter up, but you can control it better down. So this just indicates me which groups of muscles work in which direction better and where I want to pay attention. So again, smoothness of the movement, can we control it equally on both sides? Is there pain? Is there any discomfort or any tension in there that we need to explore more? The next one is probably the hardest for most riders, is the shoulder circles. So what I want to do is point you in one spot. So imagine the index finger is pointing on some spot on the wall and you keep it there. So what you want to do, you want to do big circles into the shoulder, big round circles. And the first thing you want to notice is first do a couple of times to get used to the movement. When you're used to the movement, what you want to see is the person being able to hold the hand up, because oftentimes you'll see it starts to drop or they will start to bend the elbow to make it easier. So being able to hold it here is a good indication without also falling a little bit on the upper body. Why here? Because when you ride, you have to lift the hand up here. You can't really fall back. So you have to stay on the vertical, also riding. So this is something that indicates when the rider wants to collect the horse, sometimes they will go wrongly.
Not strong enough in the shoulder girdle, yeah.
And they will start to fall back. And usually these type of riders also, they show it when I ride the hand, they will go slightly up. If I have to move the hips forward, backwards, they will lose the upper body. So they're very movable here. So hand here, big shoulders. And then if you can keep it straight, nice, then we look at the smoothness of the circle. Can I do the full circle? Is it smooth enough? Do I have to stop? Is it choppy? Do I feel discomfort, clicking, anything else? Again, it doesn't have to be anything serious. It just be simple tightness and question of coordination.
Because and maybe a little bit weakness also?
Yeah, maybe a little bit of weakness. Then we do the same arm, but only in the opposite direction. So we want to see which direction is easier and smoother. What I find often people have tightness and some not so nice feelings around. They will sometimes be better on the forward, but that's a harder movement for the brain. So normally the first instinct should be go back. So again, it's not like a serious issue, but it just might mean that I will pay a little more closer attention to that shoulder. And then we do the same on the other side. So we compare right to left. Can we do both? Is it easier to stabilize? You will see differences, especially on the upper body. So like for me, the right hand, I want to fall. And if I'm on the left, I feel more stable in my core. So it's easier for me to do the hand. And this is something to note. It doesn't always correlate if you're right-handed or left-handed. It can go both ways. So just a general shoulder movement. Then we want to see if the chest can flex. So by chest flexion, I mean the spine. So if you don't have a friend here to help you out, then what you want to do is you want to put one hand here and one hand here, and then you want to sort of bend the lower one. We don't want it to move too much.
Just go inward, yeah?
Yeah, go inwards and kind of like up. And this one will sort of fall down, facing a little bit down. And then we're going to lift up. And we want to do it as much as possible just into the thoracic spine. So what we often will see is people going here. And then the movement goes through the lower back. So this is the part where you have to stabilize when you're on the horse. And this part is not, naturally it's very movable, so it's easier to move through it. But when we're riding, we have to keep the contact and keep the lower body connected to the upper body. So this part here, we want to see it very stable and not too movable.
But we often see the opposite. They move the middle and they're very stiff in the
upper part. Yeah. So this is what we... Also, when you look at someone else, you might notice that this part here, upper part, is kind of like it goes flat. So it's not so bending so much. This is often when you will see with flat back. So it's difficult to really flex the upper part. And then the lower part is actually moving quite nice. If you have a friend, you can ask them to put fingers on the spine here and just do it, and you will have a nice feedback. So for me to do it on myself, it's a little bit difficult. But if
Should I put my hand there?
Yeah, you can put it. So like think about on the vertebrae, and you can feel it underneath
that
they're moving. So you would like to feel them going separately, bigger distances between them and closer. Bigger distances and closer.
And this is staying still.
Yeah, that one should be staying still. So that one. This is, if they can manage to do pretty nicely here, I always try them keep the hips still, just move the upper body a bit to the side. So it's a very small rotation if you can't move the hips. So very slightly rotate, and we do the same here. And usually what I find here, this very often correlates to riders having trouble riding on one side. So for example, if I have trouble riding to the right side, which I do normally, you will see that on the left side, this movement is more natural and more easy for me. I don't have to force it. It goes easy. I just turn and I do it, and I feel freedom in between the shoulder blades. When I do it on the right side, I start to lean or do other things.
You don't come as far.
Yeah, and I also cannot come that far. And then I will force it a little bit. You will have this feeling that you have to really think about it, really like...
It's a restriction.
Yeah, concentrate. It might not be even physical restriction, it's just that it takes more effort. And if it takes more effort, usually you will have the same in riding, especially in the trot. You can see the difference that on the right or left. Not all cases, but for most I would say it correlates. And you will have a better indication on which side you will fall out. The horse is probably going to, if you ride on the circle, it will, for example, if I like to bend, the horse will probably make a bigger circle than I want, so on that side. Fall out in the corners, the shoulder, and it might be harder to turn the horse properly on the jump. So if I would be a jumper, then from the left side it's much easier to keep the horse in balance and turn on the jump, more precise. And on the left side I would always have a bit of trouble handling it. So that's what I see mostly. Again, it's not always 100%. And then what we want to see is also chest moving from side to side. So this is actually movement when a lot of riders oftentimes have a very big trouble with. So they can't slide the rib cage from side to side without moving the hips. So they will always want to move the hips. We want to stay on both feet, hips still, and just slightly slide the chest. Sometimes they will even go like, oh, it hurts between the shoulder blades. Again, do a couple. If it's a couple of times, if it's ease up, then they just need it to move. If it doesn't, then it's something to explore. Obviously, keep in mind if you have a client with a scoliosis, it will be very obvious that it's easier to move on one side than its other if the scoliosis is in the thoracic area. So smoothness of the movement, how equal it is on both sides, is there any discomfort, how much they have to think about it, because they will probably have to think about it. Again, that simply indicates, can they really move the chest part in all directions?
And we have experienced that this is really important because this chest is high up above the horse's spine.
Yeah.
So the horse needs to rotate to turn, and if you cannot bring your chest over, you cannot help the horse with the correct rotation.
Exactly.
So very important.
So yeah, and a lot of compensations comes with chest area, so that you can either bend or slide over or drop, which is all kind of variations that you will see on the rider. Okay, so with the arms, moving down to the arms, I normally like to just put the hands down together and ask them to turn them forward. So, and what I want them to notice is, where do they feel the tightness? So, for example, my right forearm here feels more freedom, so the elbow is more nicer. And this one almost feels like I have to a little bit force it into the movement. So another place where they will feel a difference might be here on the shoulders. So there's some, again, some tightness coming up here. Be mindful of men, because they literally have more muscle mass, especially if they work out. So depending on the muscle mass, it might be difficult to actually do the movement. It might not mean anything bad. It's just mindful of the muscle mass. And again, just for them to feel what is different, how the wrists feel, how the elbows feel, compare one to another, and how the shoulders feel to do this. Just to have a general idea how, if it is one arm free, more free than the other arm.
And having one more arm more stuck when you're sitting on a horse is bad.
Yeah, then you can't create an equal contact, and you might have a trainer who is telling you to like open the arm more, and you physically can't do it, and you start to point the elbow out and just, you know, turn it like this. So that's why we need the shoulder freedom and the freedom in the elbows. Also the cantering, so we want the movement to be into the elbow, so you need to be flexible and able to move. Like if you see the elbow is tighter, for me it would be a little bit work to follow the horse, whereas this side is probably going to be a little bit more natural and easy to follow the horse at this point today. The situation can vary from day to day, so that's why I use the warm-up with everybody always to check how they are today.
Do they, when they do this, realize maybe, because a lot of riders ride with one hand and shoulder higher up, do they realize that they're doing that when they do this?
Yes, they can. I will point out, so can you lower the shoulder or keep it still? This one they will usually find out when they do the shoulder circles, because when it's hard to hold it up, they will either pull it up or lower or do any kind of thing just to avoid simply holding it up. So with this one, it's more like, because when you hold the rein, you have to hold it with the palm, but at the same time you need a flexible elbow to do it. And this is where we often go wrong. We tighten up the elbow and lose the reins because the hands go floppy and loose. And when you start to have the freedom around the elbow and you're able to actually hold the rein, you can have that flexible contact. And it's not like, this is something like what I think a lot of riders mistake with having a hard hand. It's not so much about the hand, it's that if they tighten up the elbow and stop from moving.
And they need a good shoulder to support that elbow.
Yeah, it's all connected. If they don't have it up here, they will never be able to create that contact with the hand where you hold it and stay there, and looseness in the elbow. So shoulders are very important for the contact.